where we come to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today, we celebrate a remarkable man who dreamed of a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. As we remember Dr. King, let us think about his incredible courage and determination in fighting for justice. He taught us the importance of standing up for what is right, using our voices to make a difference, and believing in the power of love and unity. Throughout this assembly, I encourage you to think deeply about our school values of kindness, honor, dignity, and curiosity. Let's make this a meaningful day as we honor Dr. King and the important message he shared with the world. Thank you for being here, and now Aiden Evans will read the bio of our speaker.
Hello, my name is Aiden Evans, class of 2029. Today I will talk about Dr. Agnes Francis Adolphine. Dr. Francis Adolphine is a learning and talent development executive with over 30 years of global leadership experience in the telecommunications, information, and communication technologies and engineering sectors. She is renowned for transforming organizational cultures, driving talent and digital transformations, and fostering high-performing teams. Dr. Francis Adolphine has a proven track record of aligning human capital strategies with enterprise goals, delivering scalable operational solutions, and championing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. As a catalyst for change, Dr. Francis spent over a decade at Cox Communications, driving workforce readiness for 18K employees across the 6 regions and 21 markets to maximize a $10 billion investment in the network. Prior to joining Cox Communications, she spent a decade consulting with various companies, industries, where she focused on systems integration, project management, strategy, and training. During this time, she consistently found innovative ways to be disruptive and reinvent herself. This includes making a brief career change into media and broadcasting, where she co-chaired an interactive daily talk show in her native country and earned the moniker First Lady of Talk Radio in Antigua and Barbuda. Dr. Francis obtained a doctorate in learning and organizational change from Baylor University. She holds a Master of Engineering from UT Austin and Bachelor and Associate degrees in Computer Science and Business. She won multiple awards, including the prestigious Excellence in Learning Award from the Society of Cable and Telecom Engineers, Advocacy Awards for championing diversity and equity at Cox and Motorola, and Brandon Hall Gold Awards from Innovation and Learning. She is a continuing author to numerous publications, including Broadband Library, Diversity Incorporated, and IEEE. Her greatest achievement yet is being a wife, mother, and ally for her daughter. And now welcome Dr. Adolphine.
Thank you so much, Evan. That was phenomenal. I don't know if I've ever heard myself being introduced so glowingly. And so I want to thank you. And where's Jacob? Oh, there's my man. All right, thank you so much for reminding us about why we're here and why this weekend is so important for us to reflect on not only the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but the commitment that he has for being an advocate and an ally for change. And so today I am very excited, a little bit under-rested. I was very nervous. See, I remember when I was a middle schooler, and I wanted to be so cool today, so I tried to put on some sneakers instead of heels. How am I doing? Yeah. Okay. I even tried to dress a little cool, appropriate. So I hope I haven't violated the dress code. So I want you to make an agreement with me for the next 30 minutes. I know you will be tempted to be distracted, to have conversations with your neighbors, to stare at me blankly. But what if, for the next 15 minutes, we agree that I will keep it exciting? I will at least let you walk away with something new, at least one thing new that you did not know before. And in turn, the currency you're going to give me is your attention. Can we agree on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we do the happy hands on that?
Yes,
Fantastic. I appreciate it so much. So, you heard Evan introduce me, but I think one of the things I would like to share with you is just a quick journey of my story related to some of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. truly believed in and whose commitment around these things still resonates across the world today. You see, at 10 years old, I began to work. My first job, a cashier. That's where I cultivated a passion for math. Because in those days, there was no AI and there were no computers. Everything was completely manual, right? And so I had to balance the cash register at the end of the day, and I was accountable to make sure that that was completely zero balanced, right? What was sold equated to what was in the register, right? And the reason I started working at 10 years old, because at 4 years old, my father died, right? So imagine having a mom who had to change careers because her father died unexpectedly. Her father was a fantastic criminal attorney and politician, and it changed the trajectory of her life. And so, having started to work at 10, to supplement the income from my household, I learned the importance of having people in the community who could be an advocate for change and who could be an ally. Let's fast forward about 3 years, getting ready to go into high school, similar to some of you who are at the last stages of your middle school journey. And in that stage, I had a phenomenal teacher who saw more in me than I even imagined I had within myself. And that teacher encouraged me, invested in me, and reminded me of my greatness. And for decades, she followed my journey. As a result of that, I felt compelled to be excellent, even on days when I felt exhausted, even on days when I felt frustrated, and even on days when the challenges of a middle school life made me feel very disoriented. Anyone can relate? All right, we're going to fast forward even faster. Graduation. That young lady used the allyship, support, and advocacy that she had, and what she did was graduated as the chair of her graduating class, as the selected speaker. She was, for those of you who love Harry Potter, if you can't hear an accent, I come from the British Commonwealth of Antigua and Barbuda. So, who was a head girl, if you're familiar with those terminology, as a result of those advocacy and support. And so, not long after that, at 16, she was able to secure a scholarship to migrate to the US. So with $20 in her hand and the promise of a scholarship that would change her world, she got on a plane and thought she was going to land in New York, but landed in Wisconsin and smelled the lovely scent of cow manure in the countryside, and for the first time experienced what a motel was, as she overnighted getting ready to go and meet her host family. Pretty scary, right? But courageous, perhaps? Right? And we're going to talk about that's one of the characteristics that Dr. King embodied, courage, and also demands of us. I'm going to fast forward even faster because we need to get to some core things. So, successful, completed her associates, got an opportunity and a scholarship to complete her bachelor's. And then she thought there must be more because there was this fire inside of her. And fast forward, she ended up being selected for an engineering rotation program right out of her bachelor's program, where her company decided to pay for her master's degree. Now, this young lady always wanted to be like her dad, to be a lawyer. But how can you pass up on such an opportunity when the company is saying, I'll take care of it? And that changed the trajectory of her career, becoming more on the engineering path and less on the advocacy path. But then later on, fast forward again, another 4 years, her world converges, and she was required to give more of her natural skills, which included advocacy, which included the ability to be an agent of change. And she took that and merged both worlds, right? She never had to let go of either. And so that's one of the things that you're going to realize on your journey. This is a huge transition period for most of you, right? Where you're trying to say, who am I? What am I made for? And you're going to realize that your skills are not the only thing that defines you. And you have the ability to connect them all, right? So I'm delighted to be here because I wanted to share that with you, to impress upon you that being an advocate and an ally is a journey. No one awakens and feel like they have all the skills, all the experience to be that, right? So today, I want us to honor Dr. King's dream. And many of us know and actually demonstrate it through acts of service. In fact, I'm sure many of you and your parents and your families may be going to service projects and initiatives over the weekend. And have you also considered that in addition to acts of service, Dr. King really imparted and asked of all of us to be allies for positive change. What's your favorite MLK quote? Anyone? One or two persons? Don't be shy. Yes. Yes, sir. In the back. I have a dream. I have a dream. Dreaming is important. I love it. Thank you, sir. Any others? Yes. Wow, what brave, courageous middle schoolers. I love it.
I'm not a brave middle schooler, but I'm a brave teacher.
Oh, well, you take that too.
Dr. MLK said, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can do that.
Yes.
That's in the opposite order, but
Yes.
I like the long story.
I love that. And thank you all for being like, look at your teacher. I am seriously, right? So I have a dream. Only light can reign, right? Those are powerful quotes. And I'm going to really take some time to unpack a few other quotes, because quite often, like we've seen, we just did a quick research, right? By asking, what's your favorite quote? What was the first one? I have a dream. It is the most familiar to most people. And so I love that it is familiar. We all have to start somewhere. But what I'm hoping you will leave with today is that there are other quotes from Dr. King, right? And your courageous teacher just gave us insight into one of those. We're going to go deeper. Is that okay? All right. So the first thing I want to move into is, again, we know acts of service are important. We know that Dr. King demonstrated service and actually amplified it with his with other thought leaders. I have to be very careful because I don't want to use words that are not going to resonate with you, right? With other thought leaders. I want to, for the rest of today, focus on allyship and what that means. Moving beyond the dream, moving beyond service, and really demonstrating that it is a journey and a continuum to get there. And in order for you to move along that journey, just like an athlete, you must do what? You must practice. You must develop the muscles. You must have the exposure. And you must work those muscles in order to be excellent. So let's talk about it a little bit. There is a phenomenal advocate and ally called Julie Kratz, and she compels us to think of allyship as something that is action. In fact, a phenomenal quote by her indicates that there is no on and off switch for allies. The minute you awaken to what you're able to do, it is hard to turn it off. Okay? And so what I'd like to do is, along with Julie Kratz, really look at another phenomenal expert in this area. Her name is Jennifer Brown. And although she speaks about this exclusive leader continuum in the context of organizations and corporate environments, it is quite appropriate to apply it to the educational environment. And so we're going to dig a little deeper and talk about what it means to be an inclusive leader. And all of us are leaders. You don't have to be 30, 50, 70. You, as middle schoolers, are leading. So let's dig a little bit deeper and talk about this model of an inclusive leader that moves you along the continuum from being unaware and really just doing things out of expectation, right? More of compliance, to moving you into an area where you feel fully empowered, and in fact, you seek out opportunities to be that person, to support someone along change. And we're going to talk about what are the things that you may have that might make you that ideal person. All right, how are we doing? Are we staying awake?
Yes, we
All right. You gotta stay awake. I know it was a late night for some of you, but it is important that we stay awake and we stay together. So let's talk about it real quickly. And you'll have more opportunities to go deeper. Phase one, unaware. What does that mean? When you don't know, you just don't know. It doesn't mean that you have any negative intentions when you're unaware, but it means that you have not had the exposure. Everyone has to start somewhere, and this is a starting point. If you have not felt excluded in the past, it is hard for you to empathize with someone who might feel excluded because of their race, their background, their accents, how they talk, how they look. I mean, as a middle schooler or primary schooler, I remember getting very annoyed at the simplest things. How someone chewed their food, right? So it's hard if you're always included because of the things that you have and the protection that you have, it's hard to relate. So you're unaware, and you might be well-intentioned. But one of the things that is necessary to understand is that beginning to awaken requires you to realize that inequalities exist and that they exist in a systematic way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So from unaware, you might start to oh, I'm learning about Dr. King on a different level. Let me be curious. Isn't that one of the tenets of Walker, to be curious? Let me dig a little bit deeper. Let me ask my parents. Let me ask the teacher, right? And so you begin to awaken and you move into phase two, which is a level of awareness where you realize how much you actually don't know. And that is really a lovely place to be, because that is a place where wonder awakens in you and you begin to ask critical questions, more critical questions. You begin to become very reflective. And even when you're among people who do not necessarily have the same intentions or are not on the same journey with you, you're looking at it through a different lens. Does that make sense? All right, so you're also thinking, what are my limitations? Because as a middle schooler, you may not have everything that you need in order to be that advocate. So what are my limitations? What are my constraints? And if you're really courageous, you may ask, what are my advantages? What do I have that someone else does not have that I could use for good if I see they're being mistreated or that I see that they're being excluded. Make sense? All right, so let's move on. You wanna move to the right. Let's move to the right, right? So the next stage is being active. And that is where you sign up to do more than you're doing. It's not enough to be quiet. It's not enough to be still. It's not enough to not seek the help that you need in order to be more activated. Remember we said earlier, allyship is action, right? So we're getting there, right? And then you commit not only in your words, but in your actions, right? So they begin to become a level of consistency with how you operate. And sometimes it might be very isolating. So you have to be conscious of why people are no longer finding you cool, right? So moving on, remember the next stage is advocacy. And that is essentially your target, to move to the right. So in advocacy, you're not just focusing on individual issues or challenges, right? Dr. King spoke exponentially about poverty, about racism, about war, challenges that we're still experiencing in today's world. And if you think about what he said 40, 50 years ago, that still resonates today. It indicates that we still have a lot of work to do. Correct? All right, so advocacy is stage 4. You have commitment. It is your new normal. This is when you become fearless. People are like, who is that guy? Oh my goodness, I have not seen her like that before. What has gotten into her? But deep inside, you know that there is a desire, a realization that you have gifts and privileges. You can do more, you can be more, and you're choosing to be that ally. Make sense? It's a choice. So, these are the steps that you would aspire to. And I would submit that there are other levels beyond this, beyond what Jennifer Brown proposed. And so that leads me into recommending that the next step is allyship. Even more active than advocacy. Allyship not only compels you to evaluate systems, but it compels you to do something. And perhaps one day, you might be even comfortable saying, like I'm saying, that I'm a Jedi for change. I'm about justice. I'm about equality. I'm about diversity. I'm about inclusion. Right? Make sense? All right. So, I'm going to add that word "and" a lot. Because when you're in a situation and you're not sure what to do, and what? If you ask the question, and what? And what? And what? You'll get all the answers that you need, right? So, an ally also seeks out ways to use their resources to be of service to others, right? It is, again, if it's one thing I want you to walk away with, is that allyship is action. Being an ally is an act, it's a verb, okay? And so you begin to think about what privileges and skills do I have as an individual that I could join with others who have different skills and conspire with them to change a system, to change a challenge, to change a problem. We are living in a time that is extremely exciting, yet it is challenging. Would you agree? I think about the fires in Los Angeles. Some of you may have families there, right? And it is hard to watch. I think about our polycrises around climate change and how all of us, by the media, witness how hurricanes came closer to our shores than ever before, and what that means. I look at the political situation, and in a few days we will have a change in administration. And although many of us may not agree, we should ask ourselves, how can we be civil and support each other through the process, right? And so as young people, as middle schoolers, my middle schoolers, we have power. And even if we don't have the answers with the right questions, we can make big things happen. We can be allies. Does that resonate? Yeah? All right. So, let's get into Dr. King's quotes beyond I have a dream, because I have a dream too. And what I want us to do is act on that dream. Right? So, if you look back at the history of Dr. King's work, you will discover that he has enduring messages and guides on equality. And so, when I think about two quotes, first, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Right? And we talked earlier about how important it is to identify others who may have privileges, opportunities, or who may need some of your privilege and opportunity. Right? And working together. And then this one, many of us have heard before, is the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And ladies, my middle schoolers, I know it says man, but it means human, men or women, right? So please, don't take it literally. This is speaking to all of us, okay? So, with that, I want us to think about those quotes and what it means. The first one really underscores a level of urgency and making sure that we pay attention on our collective impact, what we can do together. Okay? I'm going to move on real quickly because I want to get to a few things and I want to make sure I save time for questions. But Dr. King's pursuit of justice was also something that often is shadowed by his I Have a Dream speech. And there's several quotes from Dr. King regarding that. I chose to highlight 4 of those. Is anyone up to reading the first one for me? Just the piece in quote. Yes, sir.
True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice.
Yes. Thank you. What's your name? Thank you so much, Alex. Yes. It is not merely the absence of tension. So we must be okay with things feeling uncomfortable. Feels a little uncomfortable. You know, we're not too cool about this. But we're getting somewhere because we're moving toward our target of justice in this situation. You should practice it in small settings and then figure out how you can make that bigger, right? I want to highlight that because he spoke these words in his book, Strive Towards Freedom. Perhaps that might pique your curiosity to have a summer read, or maybe earlier. The time is always right to do what is right. The time is, don't save it till tomorrow. Goodness, you're seeing it now. So the time is always now to do what is right. And that was in 1967. I'm sorry, in 1965. Imagine he delivered that at a college commencement. So he really was speaking to young people. Young people like you, and me. I should have laughed the second time, right? Kind of misplaced. That was intentional. How about our lives begin to end the day, we become silent about things that matter, right? This is impressing upon you that your voice matters. And you may not feel that you have all of the skills, but if you can merge your skills with others, ask the right question, you have all the power it takes to be that ally and to be an agent of change. And last, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Again, we're talking about justice here. Remember I said Jedi. You want to be a Jedi? You want to be in my camp? That's what Dr. King is talking about. I want to be a Jedi. I am a Jedi. Right? Right. So, lastly, I wanted to look at these two quotes about confronting the issue of injustice. So, the inverse, the opposite of justice. Still correlated. Who wants to read the first one? This is a good one. Yes. You're going to have to speak loudly. Is that Mr. Evans? What's your last name? That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. It's funny, I was looking at a number of videos on allyship last night, and I realized that 99% of what came up in my feeds, and I looked at multiple sources as a researcher, were females. Right? And so when I look at this quote and I think about we know through painful experience that freedom is never volunteered by the oppressor, it must be demanded by the oppressed. I think about how marginalized women are, right? And how they still must dig deep in order to make sure that we are moving toward eliminating injustice. That is a lot to chew on, but I'm saying that to say, many of you young men in here are so courageous, and you have made up your mind to be an ally. And we need men at the table, together. Remember? All right, so the thing I want you to remember from those quotes, and you have an opportunity to look at them more deeply and to look at others that resonates with you, that really make you think, what can I do? What should I do? What will I do? How will I be a Jedi? Right? He recognized the power of service and allyship. And so he stated, everyone can be great because everybody, including you, everybody can serve. And so, of course, back to my first gentleman back there, in his I Have a Dream speech, please note that in addition to having a dream, he also described an equitable community for all. Because often we zoom in on the dream, but we don't zoom in on the other things. Yeah? And so, with that, I want to see if you want to talk. Do you want to talk to a Jedi? Because I'm ready to talk. How many more minutes do we have, Ms. Fleming? Oh, we are wrapping up. So we're going to pivot because that's what we do, right? So while we're pivoting, let me see the hands of anyone who's learned anything new today that you did not know before. Ooh, even my sound booth. Ah! I love it. I love it. And then what is the one thing that you're like, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to do this differently because I've learned something new and I'm going to try it out because there's no failing. Excuse me, there's no failing in middle school. Who's willing to do just one thing differently? You don't have to tell me what that is. Yeah? Yeah, I see a lot of hands raising and I love it. And don't worry, The others are not there yet. Remember, it's a continuum. So let's not judge those who are not raising their hands. They're just not there yet. But if we do it and we show them the path, imagine the impact we could have. Yeah? I want to thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Samuel, for having me today. Mr. Evans, I appreciate you. And go make your day excellent. I know I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. So I don't want to spoil that. So thank you for the opportunity.